In this video, we're going to be talking about how to become a good leader in church, part 1, and we're mostly going to be talking about leadership principles from the Navy SEALs coming up. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. My name is Chris Abbott, and in this video, we're going to be talking about some Navy SEAL leadership principles that not only the Navy SEALs and some of the most elite leaders in the world can use, but we can also use in the church world and in our ministry leadership. So let's dive in. Okay, so all the principles in part 1 and part 2 are from a book called Extreme Leadership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. If you guys haven't read it, I definitely highly recommend it. It's incredible. Not a church book, but it is a phenomenal leadership book. So let's dive into principle number 1. All right, so the first principle is extreme leadership. Right? And so this is the idea that the leader has to own everything. So for us as pastors and church leaders, no matter what it is, we have to own the problems, right? And we have to own the solutions. Jim Collins actually talked about this in Good to Great when he talked about level 5 leaders, right? So this idea of extreme ownership, what he said level 5 leaders always do is whenever things are going good, right? The church is growing and you're crushing it and doing well, it's always all about the people, right? It's like, oh my gosh, church has been growing. Things have been phenomenal lately. It's like, wow, man, I've got such an incredible volunteer staff. And I tell you, man, our leaders have been crushing it lately. Our youth pastor is incredible. Our worship team's been amazing, right? It's always about your people. You're always looking out the window to your people. But whenever anything is going wrong, the leader always takes responsibility. Hey, this one's on me, guys. Everything is always your fault. This is the idea of extreme leadership. Okay, so taking total responsibility, especially for failure, is not easy, but this is what great leaders do, right? This is what the Navy SEALs are founded on, and this is what great leaders in the churches do as well. So I actually had this happen to me a couple of years ago. I remember we had a church growth conference at the church, and we had a bunch of people there, and I basically just taught my system and all these different principles that we'd been using at the church to grow and reach tons of people with Facebook ads, landing pages, plan your visit, and follow-up systems. At the end of the conference, we were inviting the churches there to become a part of our church network, where they could actually continue to learn from me and learn from our church and learn some of the church growth principles that we've been doing. The problem was when it came time to sign everybody up, we actually didn't have a way to sign them up. So literally we'd spent 2 days teaching them, and then we didn't think through how we were actually going to take down their information, how we're going to get them signed up, how we're going to take down payment information, right? It was a complete failure at the end. And so at the end of it, I just had to take responsibility and say, guys, listen, this one's on me. I should have thought through this thing, right? And there were other people at church that were doing, like I wasn't in the business office. I actually didn't even know how to take payments or how to sign people up for that kind of stuff, right? Like I was there doing all the content and teaching, but it was on me as the leader that I should have thought through those things. I should have gotten with some of the people and said, hey, what's the best way for us to sign people up? What's the best way for us to capture their information? How do we onboard them? But that was something I hadn't thought through. And so I just had to take ownership and apologize to the entire team and say, guys, listen, I apologize. This one's on me. And so every single time we ever put on an event, whether it was a virtual or online event or in-person event, I always made sure that we had the sign-up process down pat before we ever started. All right, and that also includes underperformers, right? So if there's people on your team who aren't doing their job, it's actually not their fault. It's your fault as the leader, right? Either you didn't train them well enough, or you didn't communicate the why behind what they're doing, or maybe they just don't fully understand your expectations because you didn't communicate them clearly enough, right? This is always on us as leaders. We have to not only take responsibility for the failures in the organization, but also the underperformers of the people on our team. We must not have trained them well enough. All right, principle number 2, there's no such thing as bad teams, only bad leaders. Now, when I was growing up in summer camp, I used to go to a place in Western Maryland, one of the coolest summer camps I've ever been to, and we'd split up into 4 different tribes, and we would compete all week long. The winning tribe at the end of the week would get the golden feather, right? Super cool, I know, right? So, but growing up as a kid, that was a huge deal. And whoever won the golden feather literally had bragging rights for an entire year. So I've been going to this summer camp for 6 years. And when I was 15, I became chief of the Shawnee tribe. So in all 6 years that I'd been there, we had never won the golden feather. In fact, a lot of years we came in dead last. And so I decided, okay, this is the year. Now that I'm chief of the Shawnee tribe, we're going to win the golden feather this year. So I made sure to cast vision and get everybody excited and just said, man, we're going to have more fun than any tribe here. At the end of the week, we're going to win the golden feather. One of the things I realized is that no matter what, I encouraged everybody, I high-fived everybody, and we had a blast. On one of the last days of the camp, they switched all the chiefs and they put them in different tribes. And so they actually put me in the Delaware tribe, which at that point was dead last, right? They were super quiet, they never yelled, they never did anything, and they put the Delaware tribe in with the Shawnee tribe. Now the Shawnee tribe continued to do things because we had been building that culture all week long. They were loud, they were crushing it, they were enthusiastic. But the crazy thing was, the Delaware tribe ended up winning the day. It wasn't that the Delaware tribe was bad. It was just that the chief of the Delaware tribe didn't understand one simple leadership principle, right? There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. So one of the things that I realized is that whenever we did our team chants at the end of every single competition, the louder I would yell 1, 2, 3, the louder my tribe would yell. None of the other chiefs had figured this out, and I wasn't going to tell them, and I'd been doing it all week long. And so literally I went up there when it came for Delaware, I'd say 1, 2, 3, Delaware, Delaware, how? I know, super cool. We did that after every single competition. At the end of the day, the Delaware chief came up to me and said, I can't believe they were so loud for you. Why weren't they that loud for me all week long? Right? To which I didn't want to give away any of my secrets. I just said, I don't know, just lucky, I guess. And went back to the Shawnee tribe, which, and not to brag or anything, but we did win the golden feather that week. Okay, so if your team isn't performing well enough, then you need to take ownership of that as the leader, right? There's no bad teams, only bad leaders. So you need to take a look at your leadership and figure out, do you need to communicate the vision differently? Do you need to train them differently? Maybe you just need to be a little bit more excited and encourage them a little bit more, right? If you yell 1, 2, 3 pretty loud, your team's gonna yell back. All right, principle number 3, believe. A leader has to fully believe in the mission in order to be able to convince and inspire your team to believe in the mission as well. And so that belief has to start with you. If you try to sell a half-baked idea that you don't believe in, of course your team isn't gonna believe in it with you, right? You have to be fully persuaded, 100% convinced of the mission, the vision, the event that you're about to put on, the new sermon series that you're gonna launch, whatever it is, you have to believe in it 100% as the leader before you can convince and persuade the rest of your team to follow you. So you have to believe. All right, principle number 4, check the ego. Now, this one can be really tough, especially if you have kind of a take charge personality, but the biggest threat to top performance and growing your church is literally gonna be ego, and most likely, probably yours, right? So every single leader deals with this from time to time, right? But we all have to check our ego. We have to make sure that we're not getting in the way. So when I was in youth ministry, one of the principles that I learned was that a good idea from one of my youth kids was better than a great idea from me. And so a lot of times we would go with a sermon series or an event idea or some type of lock-in that I didn't think was a great idea. I actually thought I had a much better idea. But because there was a 16-year-old kid who was super pumped about it and thought he could invite the entire football team to this lock-in, then we always went with a good idea from a youth kid instead of a great idea from myself. Because at the end of the day, we just have to get our ego out of the way. All right, so before I get to my last couple of points, I'm curious, have you guys read Extreme Ownership, right? If you have, what were some of your favorite takeaways? Or if you haven't, what are some of your favorite leadership books or leadership principles that you've learned in ministry over the years? I want to hear about it. Put them down in the comments. All right, principle number 5, cover and move. Now, again, this is a Navy SEAL principle, but the same thing applies to us in ministry, right? Cover and move basically means teamwork. We can't be a solo operator. We can't try to do things on our own. We have to constantly be able to rely on our teams, and our teams need to be able to rely on us. So a friend of mine pastors a great church, but one of the biggest problems that they were having is that everyone on staff operated in a silo. Right? So the youth pastor was basically doing his own thing and nobody really knew what was going on. And the kids pastor was doing her own thing and nobody really knew what was going on. And then the pastor was doing one thing and the assistant pastor was doing something completely different, right? So you had all these different silos and nobody was relying on each other, nobody was communicating, and nobody was working together, right? So this idea, this principle of cover and move, we can't operate as silos, we have to operate as a team. So one of the ways that we did this in my church, we launched a discipleship program that we called the Second Mile. And so this was for adults 18 and over, and it was a pretty in-depth discipleship program once a week, and people would come out, and it was a really, really big success. So one of the things that we did with this idea of teamwork and cover and move is we actually launched a Second Mile in our high school ministry and then also in our middle school ministry, right? So now, instead of everybody being in a silo, the entire church was operating on the same discipleship program. And we rolled out Second Mile principles at every single level, but we were able to change them to make them age appropriate. So if we were learning about grace or faith one month, then everyone from the grown-ups all the way down to 6th graders were studying grace or faith as well. And so literally the middle school would be studying grace, but in a way that's age appropriate for them. The high schoolers would be studying grace, but in a slightly different way for them. And then all of the adults would be studying grace as well. This is a really, really cool way to kind of implement this principle of cover and move and making sure that your entire team is moving in the right direction. All right, and principle number 6, simple. So as leaders, we always want to simplify as much as possible. We want to take our idea and we want to cut it all the way down to the core of an idea and make it as simple and easy to understand as possible. Your people and your team aren't going to be able to understand complicated plans and orders or vision. If you can simplify that down to one idea, then everybody in the organization is going to know exactly what to do. So for example, in the military, they have something called the commander's intent, right? So if the commander's intent is to take Hill B, then everybody knows that they are trying to take Hill B. So it doesn't matter how you do it. It's a very simple command, but that's what needs to happen. At the end of the day, we need to take Hill B. Then we have succeeded in our mission. And if we haven't, then we failed. This is very easy and it's simple to understand. And it also gives your leaders enough freedom to be able to do whatever they need to do in order to execute the commander's intent. That same principle applies for us in church leadership, right? We need to have a very simple commander's intent. So if the goal for Easter Sunday is to have the biggest Easter Sunday we've ever had, then we might say, hey, our goal is to double the church on Easter. We want to have twice the amount of people that we normally have on an average Sunday. We want to have twice that amount on Sunday morning. Right now, everybody in the organization is moving forward and we're all moving towards the same goal. And we know, okay, no matter what we do on Easter, we need to make sure that we double the church. That's the principle of simple. So if you guys like this video, I've actually got 6 more Navy SEAL leadership principles coming. So make sure to check out How to Become a Good Leader in Church, Part 2. See you soon.